Since when the millionaire's voice sliced through the elegant restaurant, cold and sharp, does Juniper and Ash allow its staff to conduct personal affairs in some indecipherable foreign tongue in a civilized establishment? Maya Evans froze the warmth of a private call with her Nana instantly extinguished. Every eye in the vicinity turned towards her. Harrison Sterling III, powerful and accusing, stared her down. One brief private call, and her world was about to shatter. What would you do in Maya's shoes? Have you ever faced a moment where doing something so simple led to such shocking consequences? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're curious to see how Maya navigates this storm, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss her incredible journey. Maya Evans always believed silence was golden, especially within the hushed, expensive air of Juniper and Ash. But one call from Nana, a call that warmed her heart in a place that often chilled, it threatened to turn that gold into gunpowder. The late afternoon sun cast long, unforgiving shadows across the polished mahogany of the restaurant. It was that lull between the frantic lunch rush and the evening's impending storm of diners. Maya moved with a practiced grace, her movements economical, her expression a carefully constructed mask of pleasant neutrality. For 3 years, this uniform, the crisp black shirt, the starched apron, had been her armor. She was good at her job, efficient, observant, a ghost, anticipating needs before they were voiced. Her colleague Alex Miller leaned against the service bar, polishing a wine glass with a flourish that was more for his own amusement than necessity. He caught Maya's eye and grinned, nodding subtly towards the restaurant's entrance. "Weather forecast for table 7, he whispered as Maya passed high chance of entitlement with a scattered shower of impossible demands. "And I think our esteemed Mr. Sterling is due any minute." Maya offered a small, almost imperceptible smile. Alex had a way of puncturing the often suffocating seriousness of Juniper and Ash. "Just another Tuesday, then," she murmured back, grabbing a fresh stack of linen napkins. As if summoned by Alex's light-hearted prediction, Harrison Sterling III swept in. He wasn't just a guest, he was an event. Tall, impeccably dressed, with an air of someone who expected the world to rearrange itself to his liking, and was usually proven right. He surveyed the room like a king, inspecting his domain, his gaze briefly flicking over a nearby table where a young couple were quietly celebrating. He made a dismissive gesture to the host, who scurried to adjust a perfectly placed vase that had apparently offended Mr. Sterling's sensibilities from across the room. Maya sighed internally. Another shift spent navigating the minefield of his preferences. 2 ice cubes, not 3. Water refilled precisely when the glass was 2/3 empty. No idle chatter, but instant, almost psychic attention. She was about to check on her other tables when her phone, tucked deep in her apron pocket, vibrated softly. A glance confirmed it, Nana. Her grandmother, her rock calling from the other side of the world. It was unusual for Nana to call during her work hours, unless it was important or unless she had a particularly amusing story to share. A warmth spread through Maya, a stark contrast to the cool, curated ambience of the restaurant. She excused herself, discreetly stepping into the narrow alcove by the wine cellar, a small pocket of relative privacy. "Nana," she answered softly in Mandarin, the familiar cadence of her heart's language a balm. Nana's voice, bright and loving, chirped through the phone. "Ah, Xiao Mei," she said, using Maya's childhood nickname. They spoke for no more than a minute. A quick check-in, a reassurance about a doctor's visit, and then Nana, with a chuckle in her voice, recounted her latest triumph. Nana just won first prize at the neighborhood flower arranging competition. You know, all the other ladies were so impressed. They said Nana must have some secret magic. Nana's secret magic is missing you, child. Maya smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that rarely surfaced within these walls. "That's wonderful, Nana. I miss you too. I have to go now, but I'll call you after work, okay?" "Okay, my love. Be good." As Maya ended the call, tucking her phone away, she felt a pinprick of unease. Harrison Sterling III was seated at his preferred corner table, but he wasn't looking at the menu. He was staring directly at her, his expression unreadable for a moment, then slowly hardening into something sharp and unpleasant. She straightened her apron, ready to approach his table with her usual professional calm, but he preempted her. His voice, carrying across the now quiet room, was laced with a distinct, icy disdain. "Excuse me, waitress," he called out loud enough for several nearby staff and the couple at the adjacent table to turn their heads. Since when does Juniper and Ash allow its staff to conduct their personal affairs in some indecipherable foreign tongue in the middle of a civilized establishment? The word, so public, so dismissive, hit Maya like a physical blow. The warmth from Nana's call evaporated, replaced by a chilling shock. The quiet fire of her pride, the dignity she carried from her heritage and her upbringing flickered dangerously. Alex from across the room froze mid-polish, his earlier humor vanishing, his eyes wide with disbelief and anger as he stared at Harrison Sterling III. The air in Juniper and Ash suddenly felt very, very cold. The reason for dismissal when it came was as cold and sterile as the polished steel of Juniper and Ash's kitchen, not aligned with our establishment's premium standards. Maya found herself wondering, with a bitter twist in her gut, if those unspoken standards now included a ban on having a grandmother. The summons had come the next morning. Not a discreet word at the end of her shift, but a formal request to see Megan Vance, the restaurant manager, before her scheduled start time. Maya had walked into Megan's small, overly tidy office with a sense of foreboding that had settled in her stomach like a lead weight since Harrison Sterling III's outburst. Megan Vance, a woman who usually wore her authority like a too-tight dress, looked unusually flustered. Her smile, typically a fixed, polite curve, didn't quite reach her eyes, which darted around the room as if searching for an escape route. A pristine, telltale folder lay ожидающий on the desk between them. "Maya, thank you for coming in," Megan began, her voice a little too bright. She gestured vaguely at the folder. We've had to review a rather unfortunate situation from yesterday." Maya kept her expression neutral, her hands clasped loosely in her lap. "Mr. Sterling's complaint, I presume?" Megan winced almost imperceptibly. Well, yes, a guest did express significant discomfort. And Maya, at Juniper and Ash, the guest experience is paramount. We pride ourselves on a certain seamlessness. She paused, then plunged. "Maya, we very much regret this, but it seems, well, perhaps your communication style isn't quite in sync with the culinary experience Juniper and Ash strives to offer. It's like a fine consommé shouldn't have an unexpected, shall we say, whisper of a foreign flavor." The analogy was so absurd, so offensively obtuse, that Maya almost laughed. Instead, a cold anger began to solidify beneath her shock. My communication style, Megan, or the language I chose to speak with my Nana on a private 30-second call in an alcove away from the dining floor. Megan's gaze dropped to the folder. "It's about professionalism, Maya, about maintaining an atmosphere. There are pressures from above. Mr. Sterling is a significant patron, an investor." Her voice trailed off the implication, hanging heavy in the air. "So because a wealthy man was made uncomfortable by a language he didn't understand, my 3 years of dedicated, flawless service mean nothing." Maya's voice was low, but each word was clear, precise. Megan finally looked up, a flicker of something, shame, regret, in her eyes before it was quickly extinguished. "I'm sorry, Maya. The decision is final." She pushed the folder containing a severance check and a termination letter, citing vague breaches of conduct across the desk. Maya stood her dignity a shield. She didn't touch the folder. "You could have defended me, Megan. You know I did nothing wrong." "I have a mortgage," Maya Megan said, her voice barely a whisper. "I have a job to keep too." The excuse, so small, so human, and yet so profoundly disappointing, was the final straw. Maya nodded slowly, a deep ache settling in her chest. "I see." She turned and walked out, leaving the folder untouched on Megan's desk. Alex Miller found her by the staff lockers a few minutes later, her face pale, but her eyes burning. He didn't need to ask. One look told him everything. He wordlessly handed her a large bar of dark chocolate from his bag. Here, he said, his usual jovial tone replaced by a grim anger. "Emergency rations for a warrior. They actually did it, didn't they? That pompous windbag actually got you fired." Maya nodded, a tremor running through her. "For speaking to Nana." Alex paced a small circle, running a hand through his hair. "Right. Because Mandarin is clearly a threat to national security, or at least to Mr. Sterling's delicate digestion. Unbelievable." He stopped, a determined glint in his eyes. "Okay, so here's the plan. You go home, eat this entire chocolate bar, doctor's orders my orders, and try to breathe. I, on the other hand, am about to become a keyboard vigilante. Time to write a little anonymous review about the exclusive linguistic policies at a certain high-end eatery. Let's just say I'm going to stir the pot a bit. Worst case, we both end up selling artisanal pho on a street corner. I bet we'd be more popular than this place by next week." He managed a wry grin, trying to lighten the mood, but his protective fury was evident. That afternoon, a carefully worded post appeared on a popular online forum for restaurant workers in the city, and then quickly spread to a few local community groups. It didn't name names directly, but the description of a sleek, upscale fusion spot known for its celebrity clientele, and an incident involving a waitress fired after a brief personal call in her native Asian language overheard by a powerful, easily offended millionaire investor, was specific enough. The post questioned the restaurant's commitment to diversity and respect, ending with a slightly sarcastic, "Guess some languages aren't on the a la carte menu of acceptable at certain establishments." The first few comments trickled in, then a steady stream. Outrage, disbelief, stories of similar experiences. By evening, the post had been shared dozens of times. At Juniper and Ash, an uneasy quiet fell over the staff. Whispers followed Megan Vance down the halls. She in turn issued a stern memo, reminding all employees of the confidentiality clause in their contracts, and the importance of brand loyalty, a clumsy attempt to douse a spark that was already showing signs of becoming a flame. Harrison Sterling III, blissfully unaware, or perhaps callously indifferent to the growing online chatter, likely made a call to the restaurant's owner, demanding absolute assurance that the minor nuisance had been dealt with quietly and permanently. When Maya Evans' voice finally rose, it wasn't a shout, but a clear, steady tone that, amplified by 1,000 unseen allies, became a roar. Harrison Sterling III always believed his money could silence any discord. He was about to discover that the world had found its own way to laugh and rage directly in his face. The days following her dismissal were a blur of uncertainty for Maya. Alex Miller was a constant source of support, his outrage a comforting counterpoint to her own bruised spirit. He kept her updated on the growing online chatter, the digital whispers turning into a discernible murmur of discontent aimed at Juniper and Ash. But it was a call with Nana, her voice traveling across continents, imbued with unwavering love and ancestral strength that truly solidified Maya's resolve. Xiaomei Nana had said, her tone gentle but firm in Mandarin. No one has the right to make you feel small for who you are, for the words your heart speaks. Your language is your heritage, a gift. Do not let anyone tarnish it, or you. That evening, Maya sat before her laptop, Alex palabras de encorajamento ecoando en seus ouvidos. She didn't write a rant nor a plea for sympathy. Instead, she penned a simple, eloquent account of what had happened, the pride in her work, the brief, private call to her grandmother, the shock of Harrison Sterling III's demeaning outburst, and the cold, calculated dismissal. She wove in a few lines about what her language meant to her, a bridge to her family, a song of her soul. She titled it, My Mandarin, My Grandmother, and the Millionaire Who Decided They Didn't Belong at Juniper and Ash. She hit post on a popular blogging platform and shared the link on her modest social media. The internet, as it often does with stories of blatant injustice, erupted. Within hours, Maya's post was everywhere, shared by friends, then by strangers, then by influencers with massive followings, advocacy groups championing AAPI rights. Black women's empowerment and workers' rights amplified her story. News outlets, initially local, then national, picked it up. Juniper and Ashamed Sterling Silence and Maya Speaks Truth began trending. Memes appeared. One popular one depicted Harrison Sterling III wearing oversized noise-cancelling headphones with a caption, Mr. Sterling after this, now needing translation for, Can I take your order? For Harrison Sterling III, the storm hit with the subtlety of a freight train. He was at that very moment addressing an auditorium effectum «Присутствие тысяч людей на ежегодной конференции инвесторов вершина для будущего». His speech was on ethical capitalism and next-generation investments. Midway through a self-congratulatory anecdote, a journalist in the front-row phone held aloft, displaying Maya's viral post, asked a pointed question during the Q&A, Mr. Sterling, considering your recent actions concerning a waitress fired for speaking Chinese, how do you reconcile that with your definition of ethical capitalism? Harrison, caught completely off guard, stammered, I believe in a workplace environment that is efficient, and efficiency means everyone should focus on their tasks, not on languages unrelated. To the menu? His arrogant, dismissive tone, captured live and broadcast globally, was a PR disaster. Later that day, a grainy video clip seemingly from a previous visit to another upscale establishment surfaced, showing him berating a different service staff member over a trivial matter. The narrative of a petty, power-abusing tyrant was cementing itself. The most significant blow landed the following morning. Omnicorp, a major tech conglomerate with whom Sterling's investment firm was about to close a 9-figure partnership, released a terse statement. Omnicorp is dedicated to fostering diversity and inclusion. In light of recent deeply concerning reports regarding the conduct of Mr. Harrison Sterling III, we are placing our impending partnership under immediate and serious review. We will not associate with individuals or entities whose actions undermine these core values. The deal which Harrison had personally championed for months hung by a thread, its collapse, threatening to wipe millions off his company's valuation. Juniper and Ash, meanwhile, was in freefall. The reservation lines went silent except for angry callers demanding to speak to the manager about their racist policies. Negative reviews flooded every platform. One read, "Food might be 5-star, but the human decency is 0-star. Apparently speaking to your grandma is more offensive than their overcooked scallops." Protesters, a small but vocal group organized collation de groups, communautaires, loco, appeared outside the restaurant with signs reading, "Diversity is delicious," and "Fire Sterling, not waitresses." The staff exodus began. Jean-Pierre, the restaurant's famously temperamental but brilliant head chef, a man who rarely spoke to anyone outside his kitchen, Brigade made a very public exit. He was quoted by a food blogger: "I came to Juniper and Ash to create art, with food, using ingredients from all over the world. I did not come here to learn which languages are fancy enough for my foie gras. This atmosphere, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Au revoir." Megan Vance was a wreck. The restaurant owners, a faceless corporation based Shaw Drucoy, was screaming down the phone at her multiple times a day. Her attempts to issue a bland corporate non-apology statement only fanned the flames. She was in way over her head, the carefully constructed facade of Juniper and Ash crumbling around her. The mini-climax of Harrison's public shaming arrived with a brutal finality. He was scheduled to receive a prestigious Philanthropist of the Year award from a major city foundation that evening, an award his PR team had worked tirelessly to secure. An hour before the gala, the foundation issued an emergency press release. Due to recent information that has come to light, which starkly contrasts with the values championed by this foundation, we have made the difficult decision to rescind the Philanthropist of the Year award previously announced for Mr. Harrison Sterling III. We believe true philanthropy begins with basic human respect and dignity for all. The news spread like wildfire. Harrison Sterling III, the titan of industry, the ethical investor, the soon-to-be philanthropist, was now just a viral hashtag, a cautionary tale. A man whose arrogance had finally presented him with a bill he couldn't pay off with money. The public storm had well and truly broken, and he was right in the eye of it. The negotiation table Maya Evans thought as she walked into the sterile conference room felt more like an arena. But she wasn't there as a gladiator armed with shield and spear. Her only weapons were the unshakable truth and a quiet, knowing smile that unnerved far more than any shout could. The summons had come via a crisply worded email from one Robert Adler Esquire legal counsel for entities related to Juniper and Ash and Mr. Harrison Sterling III. The wolves were no longer just howling at the door. They were inviting her into their den, presumably to offer a muzzle. Alex Miller, steadfast and resolute, was by her side not as a lawyer, but as a witness, a friend, a silent testament to the fact that Maya wasn't alone. Inside, the air was thick with unspoken tensions. Robert Adler, a man whose suit probably cost more than Maya's last 6 months' rent, offered a professionally bland smile. Megan Vance sat hunched at one end of the long mahogany table, looking smaller and more stressed than Maya had ever seen her. And then there was Harrison Sterling III. He wasn't just present. He radiated a palpable aura of disdain and barely contained fury. It was clear he'd been strong-armed into attending, likely by advisors desperate to cauterize the hemorrhaging wound to his reputation and finances. Ms. Evans' Robert Adler began his voice, smooth as polished marble. "We're all here today because we believe in resolution. My clients are prepared to acknowledge that your departure from Juniper and Ash could have been handled with more sensitivity." Harrison Sterling III scoffed a sound like tearing silk. Sensitivity. The girl made a scene. Maya met his gaze directly, her own calm and unwavering. "Mr. Sterling, the only scene was the one you created with your unprovoked and discriminatory remarks." Now, Adler interjected, holding up a placating hand. "Let's not get bogged down in semantics. Mr. Sterling, Juniper and Ash, they understand that young people can be rather sensitive these days." He slid a thick envelope across the table. "To that end, they are prepared to offer a most generous severance package. 6 figures. A gesture of goodwill, of course, contingent upon a standard, non-disclosure agreement. A clean break for everyone. Harrison Sterling III leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips. There you have it, Miss Evans. A handsome sum for your troubles. Buy yourself a nice, international communication course, perhaps. Maya's smile didn't falter, but it gained an edge. Thank you for your concern for my education, Mr. Sterling. But I believe the course most urgently needed here is perhaps some intensive cultural sensitivity and basic human decency training for you and the management at Juniper and Ash. She pushed the envelope back across the table untouched. My silence is not for sale. Adler's professional mask twitched. Miss Evans, I must advise you. No, Mr. Adler, Maya said, her voice still quiet, but now carrying an undeniable weight of authority. It is I who will advise you of my terms for resolution. She looked from Adler to Sterling, then briefly at Megan, who seemed to shrink further into her chair. Won a full, unreserved and public apology from both Juniper and Ash and Mr. Harrison Sterling III. This apology must explicitly acknowledge the discriminatory nature of my firing and the unacceptable behavior that led to it. Sterling started to rise. Absolutely not. This is an outrage. Maya continued ignoring him as if he were a buzzing fly. Juniper and Ash will implement comprehensive, independently monitored diversity, equity, and inclusion training for all staff, from bus boys to board members. And their hiring and promotion policies will undergo a transparent review to ensure they are equitable. And 3, she paused, letting her final condition sink in. Should any financial settlement be agreed upon, and that is a very big if based on your current attitude, Mr. Sterling, a significant mutually agreed upon portion will be donated in Juniper and Ash's name and yours to an organization dedicated to combating workplace discrimination and supporting immigrant communities. I will choose the organization. Robert Adler was pale. Harrison Sterling III was a shade of puce Maya hadn't thought humanly possible. He looked ready to explode. You delusional little... How dare you make demands of me? It was then, in the suffocating silence that followed Sterling's outburst, that Megan Vance moved. She had been a portrait of guilty fear throughout the meeting, her eyes downcast. Now, slowly, she straightened. Her voice, when she spoke, was surprisingly steady, though laced with a tremor of residual fear and newfound resolve. She's right, Mr. Sterling, Megan said, looking not at Maya, but directly at the apoplectic millionaire. She's right. What happened to Maya? It was wrong. I was a coward. I let you intimidate me. I let the restaurant prioritize. Image over decency. She took a shaky breath. Juniper and Ash did handle it badly. I handled it badly. And the culture, the pressure you put on us, Mr. Sterling, to cater to your every whim, to ignore basic respect if it inconvenienced you. That's been a problem for a long time. Maya's requests, they're not unreasonable. They're what should have happened in the first place. Harrison Sterling III stared at Megan, his jaw working speechless for perhaps the first time in his adult life. The betrayal coming from someone he considered a compliant underling was a fresh, unexpected shock. Robert Adler looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Alex Miller, who had remained silent but fiercely present beside Maya, allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible nod of approval towards Megan. Maya watched them all, her quiet strength filling the room. The arena was hers. The choice now was theirs. Where Harrison Sterling III had sown the bitter winds of arrogance and prejudice, Maya Evans now reaped a vibrant harvest, not of vengeance, but of fragrant success, heartfelt applause, and the quiet, unshakable peace of a life lived authentically. The fallout from that fateful confrontation in Robert Adler's office was swift, though not entirely smooth. Under immense public pressure, and the very real threat of further financial ruin, Juniper and Ash capitulated. A formal public apology was issued, acknowledging their discriminatory actions and outlining a plan for comprehensive diversity and inclusion training, a plan Maya and her chosen advocacy group would help monitor. Harrison Sterling III, through his own beleaguered legal team, also released a statement. It was clipped, grudging, and reeked of insincerity, but it was an admission of misjudgment nonetheless. The world saw it for what it was, the forced concession of a fallen tyrant. For Harrison, the consequences were more than just a bruised ego. The Omnicorp deal had irrevocably collapsed. Several other high-profile investors quietly distanced themselves. Whispers in financial columns spoke of him being asked to step down from 2 influential boards. He became less a titan, more a social and business pariah, a living example of how quickly fortunes and reputations could turn when decency was discarded. Juniper and Ash began a long, arduous journey of rebuilding. Megan Vance surprisingly chose to stay. Humbled and changed by the ordeal, she spearheaded the internal reforms with a quiet determination, working to transform the restaurant's culture from the inside out. It was a difficult path, but one she now walked with open eyes and a newfound respect for the voices she had once been too afraid to hear. Maya Evans, however, had no intention of returning to a world that had tried to diminish her. She accepted a settlement, the terms of which remained private, but a significant portion, as promised, was publicly donated to a national organization supporting immigrant workers' rights. With the rest, and an outpouring of goodwill from a captivated public, she began to cultivate her own garden. Her blog, Maya's Kitchen Stories, where every flavor tells a story, launched a month later. It was a vibrant tapestry of Nana's cherished recipes, Maya's own culinary experiments, and poignant reflections on language identity and the beauty of cultural fusion. It wasn't just about food. It was about connection, about being seen and celebrated for all the complex, wonderful parts of oneself. The blog took off her authentic voice, resonating with hundreds of thousands. During one early video post while demonstrating how to make scallion pancakes, she accidentally sent a cloud of flour billowing into the air, dusting her nose. She laughed, a genuine, easy sound. Well, folks, she chuckled at the camera. That just goes to show, even when you think you're the inspiring voice of culinary reason, flour will always have a life of its own. We just calmly dust ourselves off and carry on. Soon, Nana's Table, a series of pop-up dining experiences, was born. They were intimate, joyful events, celebrating the dishes of her heritage and the stories behind them, hosted in community spaces and art galleries. They sold out within minutes. Food critics raved not just about the exquisite, heartfelt cooking, but about the atmosphere of warmth, respect, and genuine human connection Maya cultivated. One influential reviewer wrote, "At Nana's Table you are not just fed. You are welcomed." It is a delicious antidote to the soulless performative luxury that often forgets the heart of hospitality. Alex Miller, her steadfast friend, was often there sometimes, helping with logistics, sometimes just enjoying the food and Maya's infectious enthusiasm. You know, he teased her one evening as they packed up after a particularly successful pop-up. "I think that whole Harrison Sterling fiasco was just the universe's weird way of giving you a marketing budget. Your bad luck has turned into a 5-star triumph." Maya just smiled. The luck had been hard-earned. A year later, Maya stood on a brightly lit stage, accepting the Emerging Voice in Culinary Arts and Culture Award from a prestigious National Food Institute. She looked out at the audience, her Nana beaming from the front row, Alex cheering enthusiastically beside her. In her speech after thanking her family and supporters, she paused. "I also want to acknowledge," she said, her voice clear and strong, "those unforgettable experiences, the ones that test you and push you to your limits. They teach you who you are, what you stand for, and just how loud your quiet voice can become when you speak your truth. The story of Maya Evans didn't end there. It was in many ways just beginning. Her first cookbook, an extension of her blog, was already in the works. Plans for a permanent Nana's Table restaurant, a place built on principles of respect, diversity, and damn good food, were taking shape. Later that week, Maya was in her own sun-drenched kitchen, kneading dough for a new recipe, her phone propped up on the counter. Nana's smiling face was on the screen, and they were chatting animatedly in Mandarin, their laughter echoing freely, no longer a whispered secret, but a joyful, unapologetic song. The aroma of ginger soy and something wonderfully new filled the air. The silence when it came was golden once more. Not the silence of fear, but the contented, peaceful silence of a heart finally fully at home. And so Maya's kitchen, once a place of quiet comfort, now echoes with the joyful, unapologetic song of her heritage, a testament to a voice that found its power not in silence, but in speaking its truth. Isn't it remarkable how the flavors of our past, the words of our ancestors, can become the very ingredients for our most fulfilling future? Perhaps, like Maya, we all have a unique story, a unique voice that the world is waiting to hear. This journey with Maya has certainly left a deep impression on us, and we imagine it might have resonated with you too. We'd love to hear what part of Maya's resilience or her fight for justice truly spoke to you the most. Your reflections enrich these stories for everyone. And as we continue to craft these narratives, your insights are invaluable. If you have any thoughts on how we can make our storytelling even more impactful, or if there's an aspect of today's story you'd like us to explore differently in the future, please do share your feedback in the comments below. Your perspectives help us grow and bring you even more meaningful content. If Maya's story touched your heart, please give this video a like. And if you believe her journey could inspire or offer comfort to someone else, don't hesitate to share it. And of course, to join us for more emotional and inspiring journeys. Like Maya's, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. Together, let's continue to discover the power within every story. Thank you for being with us today. Until next time, keep listening to the stories your heart tells.